Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into some incredibly unique philosophical writings by an author named Zhu Feng. We'll be unpacking his work, which takes a hard look at determinism, free will, and the wild idea that there are literally cosmic programs running our daily lives. So let's jump right in, because the way this text frames reality, it's pretty much guaranteed to make you look at your everyday choices a whole lot differently.
We're starting right off the bat with a major paradox. The author points out that the second you tell someone, hey, everything is inevitable, human nature just naturally pushes back. We immediately think, well, if my whole destiny is already mapped out, why on earth should I even bother trying? If it's all inevitable, can't I just become a billionaire by sitting on the couch watching TV? Will lying in bed all day magically earn me a PhD? It's our classic knee-jerk defense mechanism against the whole idea of determinism.
But here's the author's exact counter-argument to that. The text essentially says, you actually have no choice in the matter. Your very urge to strive, to act, to drag yourself out of bed and work hard, all of that is also part of an inevitable program. According to the source material, you are completely bound to study, work, and push forward. You simply won't be able to stop yourself because the program is literally dictating it.
Which brings us to a really foundational concept in Zhu Feng's writings. It's called the kingdom of necessity. And this isn't just some poetic metaphor. The text treats this as the literal, programmed reality that we all find ourselves completely trapped inside. It's described as a realm where every single life form is bound to operate within a very specific, totally inescapable framework. To illustrate just how deeply programmed we supposedly are, the author brings up some incredibly mundane, relatable examples. Think about our biological constraints. When you need to use the restroom, you are forced to go find one, right? You don't really have a choice. Or think about social rules. When you walk into a classroom, you sit down and listen to the teacher. You don't just run up to the podium and start banging a gong. Even technology binds us. To search the web, you have to follow strict network protocols. The author is basically asking us to seriously consider, in all these everyday moments, how much freedom do we actually have?
To really drive this point home, the text uses some super vivid metaphors. The source compares us to actors who are just performing a director's script, or like chess pieces that absolutely must obey the moves of the player. You wouldn't arbitrarily drive your car off a cliff, and you certainly wouldn't serve dog feces on a dining table. By pointing out these obvious absurdities, the author is emphasizing our total lack of true freedom. We're all just following our assigned programming.
Now, let's pivot to the author's second major concept, which is the kingdom of freedom. Now, the crucial thing to understand here is that the text doesn't define freedom as an absolute state of just doing whatever you want. Instead, it's a relative progression. You are only free relative to the constraints of a lower realm.
The text maps out this fascinating hierarchy of relativity to explain this. According to the source, the world of birds is considered a kingdom of freedom when you compare it to the highly restricted world of insects. Carnivores have relative freedom over herbivores, and the human world, when compared to the entire animal kingdom, represents a vastly freer, much higher state of existence.
So, you might be wondering, how does all this cosmic relativity actually connect to our everyday human ambition? Well, the text asks us to look at our own relentless pursuits. Why do families push so hard for their children to get an education? Why do adults spend literally years chasing higher degrees or working themselves to the bone to accumulate wealth?
The source answers this by framing human ambition right through this philosophical lens. It argues we do all these things to expand our living space and to gain greater relative freedom. Getting a higher degree or earning more money gives you richer knowledge, more flexible thinking, and just a wider scope of activity in general. These earthly pursuits are really just human attempts to break out of our immediate, closed environments and step up into a wider, relatively freer existence within the program.
Section 2. The Illusion of Self-Liberation, or Why We Are Stuck.
This is where things take a pretty pivotal turn. While education and wealth might give us that relative freedom we just talked about, the text points out that true escape from the kingdom of necessity is a completely different, much tougher challenge. The author uses two striking images here. First, imagine a pig raised in a pen. No matter how clever or lively that pig is, it cannot escape the pen on its own. Now, imagine a bird kept in a cage. It might sing beautifully, it might have gorgeous feathers, but fundamentally, it's still just hopping around inside a cage. The source argues that no matter how capable, rich, or educated we become within our human boundaries, we essentially just that clever pig or that beautiful bird. We are still caged.
And this leads right into the author's firm conclusion about self-liberation.
The text states that relying solely on your own energy and wisdom is absolutely insufficient. Just as the pig needs human help to actually leave the pen, the author argues that humans need the help of the program designer to escape the earthly constraints of the kingdom of necessity.
So, to map out what that escape actually looks like, the text introduces a fascinating spatial map of reality built around the number 16. The author asks us to envision existence as 16 concentric circles of varying sizes, with each circle representing an inevitable program, a specific kingdom of necessity.
The author charts this proposed escape route as a very deliberate, step-by-step progression. Breaking out of one circle means you step into the relatively wider circle right outside of it. So you move from the inner circle of the human world to a broader program the text calls the 1,000-year world, and eventually out into even wider celestial realms like the Celestial Islands continent. Every single step is a progression into a broader kingdom of freedom.
To really anchor this concept, the author introduces a specific phrase, escape from the three realms, not within the five elements. The text explains that the ultimate goal here is to completely leave the closed earthly system. The author actually compares it to being an immigrant. Think about it. When you move to a new country, you are no longer bound by the laws, regulations, and customs of your old country. Leaving the human program means you're no longer manipulated by those earthly constraints.
Section 3. Escaping the mental prison and the ultimate obstacle. As we look at what exactly acts as the ultimate lock, keeping us stuck in that inner circle, the source material argues that the real trap isn't biological or physical at all. It's actually a mental trap. The text asserts that the most terrifying prison is the prison of thought and spirit. The author introduces a conceptual framework here, describing the human world as Satan's program. Now, in this philosophical context, this program is designed to burden us with countless rules, restrictions, and false teachings that essentially bind our mental freedom and delay our life journey.
Which brings us to the ultimate culminating question presented by the text. If we are truly trapped in a mental prison, deep within a rigidly programmed kingdom of necessity, how can an individual actually execute this grand spiritual prison break? I mean, how do we finally get out? The author presents a very specific, ideology-driven solution in the source text. To break out of this mental prison and escape the program, the text states one must rely on divine power, specifically referred to as the greatest creator, and seek guidance from spiritual figures like Jesus and Shakyamuni Buddha. On top of that, the author asserts that this escape is practically achieved by following the specific values of an organization called Lifechanyuan. According to the source material, this is the definitive roadmap for exiting the earthly program.
We're going to wrap up this explainer by turning Shifeng's philosophy directly back to you. After exploring these structured circles of inevitability, the highly relative nature of freedom, and the concept of an inescapable cosmic script, it really makes you wonder, are you truly writing your own life's program? Or are you, with all your big ambitions and daily striving, simply a brilliant chess piece waiting to be moved by the grand designer? It is a fascinating lens through which to view our daily lives, and for sure, one that totally challenges our deepest assumptions about free will.